Kalidas is a name synonymous with classical Sanskrit literature. A famous folklore states that when goddess Saraswati was asked as to who is the best poet in the world, the goddess replied, Kavir Dandi, Kavir Dandi, Kavir Dandi na samshayah. That is, Dandi alone is the poet, there is no doubt about it. Hearing this, Kalidas got so upset that he questioned her that if Dandi is the only poet, then who am I? Here the goddess replied, Tvamevaham, Tvamevaham, Tvamevaham na samshayah. You are me and I am you. There is no doubt about it. Yet, the irony of life is such that we know very little about the personal history of such a well-known poet. In the words of Mr. M.R. Kale, the curiosity of the querist who would ask where and when he was born, who were his parents, when did he die, etc., must ever remain unsatisfied. Kalidas is attributed with 7 literary marvels, of which 2 are Mahakavyas, that is, Raghuvamsham and Kumarasambhavam. 2 are khandakavyas, that is, Meghdootam and Rutusamharam. And 3 are dramas, AbhijnyanaShakuntam, Malavikagnimitram and Vikramorvashiyam. Kalidas is like a superstar whose all 7 creations are blockbuster hits. He has one of the biggest fan following in the history of literature, so much so that we celebrate Kalidas Din on first day of Indian lunar month of Aashad, not because it is his birthday, but because one of his superhit compositions, Meghdootam, consists of the line Aashadhasya Pratham Diwase Meghamashlishtasanu. When the hero of that poem saw a black rain-filled cloud and requested it to become his messenger to convey his love to his wife, from whom he had been separated due to a curse. It will be quite interesting to explore the many aspects which have contributed to Kalidas's unparalleled popularity till date. The first and foremost aspect, in my opinion, is the way Kalidas forms an instant connect with his audience. The human relationships described in Kalidas's work are so relatable to our lives that we can instantly feel it in our heart with the same intensity. The father-daughter relationship described in the 4th act of AbhijnyanaShakuntam is so beautiful that it is rightly said that Kavyeshu natakam ramyam tatra ramya shakuntala tatra picha chaturthonkaha tatra shlokat chatushtayam. In literature, drama is appealing. Amongst dramas, Shakuntalam is unparalleled. Within Shakuntalam, the 4th act is most enjoyable, and within that also, the 4 shlokas are the most beautiful. So let us see these 4 shlokas that are so revered in classical literature. On the day when Shakuntala is proceeding to her husband's house, Rishi Kanva, her adoptive father, describes the emotions of his heart thus. Yasyatyadya shakuntaleti hridayam sansprushtamutkanthaya kantha stambhita bashpa vritti kalushash chinta jadam darshanam vaiklavyam mamatavadi drushamidam snehadaranyokasah pīdyante gruhinah katham natanaya vishlesha dukkhair navaihi. Today, my daughter Shakuntala will proceed to her new house. My heart is filled with anxiety. My throat is choking as I attempt to control my tears and my vision is blurred. I, a hermit and a forest dweller, am feeling so weak and feeble due to my attachment with my daughter. I wonder how the householder copes with this unprecedented pain of separation from his own daughter. Shakuntala is very young and has lived all her life in forest. She is considered as the daughter of nature, as Maharshi Kanva had found her as a baby in the forest. Hence all trees, creepers and animals of the hermitage are like her siblings. Hence, on the day of her farewell, Kanva addresses these siblings and says, Patum na prathamam vyavasyati jalam yushma swapiteshu ya Nadatte priyamandanapi bhavatam snehena ya pallavam Adyevah kusuma prasuti samaye yasya bhavatyutsavaha Seyam yati shakuntala patigruham sarveranujjayatam. Shakuntala waters you all first and only then consumes the water herself. Though she is fond of jewelry, she never plucks your new leaves as she loves you all dearly. She celebrates the blossoming of your flowers like a festival of childbirth. Such Shakuntala is proceeding to her husband's house. May you all give her your consent and bid her farewell. Shakuntala is a child of forest and has had very little contact with urban world. Maharshi Kanva guides his daughter on how to treat the people of her husband's family thus. Shushrooshasva gurun kuru priya sakhi vrittim sapatni jane bhartur vikrutapi roshanataya masma pratipak gamaha bhuyishtham bhavadakshina parijane bhagyeshvanutsekini yanyevam gruhini padam yuvatayo vamah kulasyadhayaha. Serve the elders of the family and treat your co-wives amicably. If sometimes your husband happens to go against your will, don't do anything against him in the heat of the moment. Be amply alert and generous towards those in your service and never become arrogant of your fortune. Wives who follow this are called homemakers, and those who do opposite of this will be liable for downfall of their family. The next verse is the most emotional of all and is found ingrained deep in the psyche of Indian society. It says, Artho hi kanya parakiya eva tamadya sampreshya parigrahituhu jato mamayam vishadah prakamam pratyarpitanyas ivantaratma. A daughter is the possession of another person, and today, when I send her to her husband's house, I feel immensely satisfied, just like a person who feels immense happiness and relief when returning a trusted deposit. The most explored relationship by Kalidas is that of a husband and wife. The intensity of love in a couple is felt the most when one is separated from his or her partner. May it be Rati and Madan in Kumarasambhavam, Aja and Indumati in Raghuvamsham, Yaksha and his wife in Meghdootam, or Urvashi and Pururava in Vikramorvashiyam. Their condition in separation from each other speaks volumes about the bond they shared. Entire fourth canto of Kumarasambhavam is dedicated to Rati Vilap, or weeping of Rati after she sees her beloved Madana, the Cupid, burned to ashes by the fire of Shiva's third eye. Her sorrow is boundless as she describes what Madan, the Cupid, meant for her. Rati is weeping near the ashes of Madana and is calling out to him to come back and not leave her alone, or else she will follow him to heaven by burning herself to death by sitting on a pyre. Some heart-rending verses are as follows. Hridaye vasati iti mat priyam yadavochas tadavainikaitavam upachara padam na chedidam tvamanangaha kathamakshata ratihi. You fooled me for the sake of pleasing me by saying the words that I live in your heart. If it was not an empty compliment, then how is it that you are without a body and Rati is uninjured? मदनेन विना कृता रतिः क्षणमात्रं किल जीवितेति मे वचनीयमिदं व्यवस्थितं रमण त्वाम् अनुयामि यद्यपि. Though I have decided to follow your path by extinguishing myself in fire, but still the reproach in connection with me will stand that Rati, bereaved of Madan, indeed lived, though only for a while. Shashina sahayati kaumudi sah meghena tadit praliyate pramadaha pativartmaga iti pratipannam hi vichetanairapi. The moonlight passes with the moon, and the lightning vanishes with the clouds. The wife has to go by the way of her husband, is thus admitted even by lifeless or insentient things. As Rati is calling out to Madana, she invokes his friendship with Vasanta, or the spring season. Kalidas beautifully brings out the relationship between friends as follows. He says, अयि सम्प्रति देहि दर्शनं स्मर पर्युत्सक एष माधवः दयितास्वनवस्थितं नृणां न खलु प्रेम चलं सुहृज्जने. Now reveal yourself to us, O Cupid. Your friend Vasanta longs to behold you. The love of men may be fickle towards women, but it cannot be so towards a friend. The second aspect of Kalidas' style of writing are the beautiful metaphors and similes he uses to paint his poems. No wonder he is remembered for them as Upama Kalidasasya. At the very beginning of Raghuvamsham, Kalidas has used a beautiful simile as follows. Vagartha viva sampruptau vagartha pratipattaye jagatah pitarau vande Parvati Parameshwarau. To understand the words and their meanings, I bow down to Shiva and Parvati, the guardians of the world, who are in union just like the words and their meaning are. In the same poem, in the 6th canto, Aja Indumati Swayamvar is described. Here, kings from across the Indian subcontinent have gathered in the court, and Sunanda, friend of Indumati, is introducing all kings to her one by one. In this context, a beautiful shlok appears that gave Kalidas the famous title Deepashikha Kalidasaha. The verse goes, Sancharini Deepashikhe Ratrau Yam Yam Vyatiyaya Patim Varasa Narendra Margatta Iva Prapede Vivarna Bhavam Sasabhumi Palaha. Indumati, the one ready to choose her husband, appears before each king, listens to his introduction, and passes towards the next. Such Indumati brightens the face of the king she approaches and makes it dull again due to disappointment after crossing him, just like a fire torch that brightens a part of road with its light, and then that part is lost in darkness once the effect of light is gone. Oh, what a beautiful description! Sometimes, while reading a book, you close it and stare at the wall for a while, realizing how well written a line is. Well, one experiences several such moments when reading the works of Kalidas. The third aspect is the way Kalidas depicts nature in his compositions. He personifies the plants, animals, rivers, and mountains, and their actions reflect human emotions. For example, in the 4th act of AbhijnyanaShakuntam, when Shakuntala is proceeding to leave for her husband's home, the entire forest is covered with gloom. The thought of Shakuntala leaving forever has saddened one and all. Kalidas says, Udgalita darbhakavala mrugi, parityakta nartana mayuri, apasruta pandupatra, munchantya shruniva lataha. The deers have dropped their mouthfuls of kusha grass, the peacocks have given up dancing, and the creepers appear to shed tears as they throw off their faded leaves. With a heavy heart, when the forest permits Shakuntala to proceed, it bids her farewell with the following verse. Ramyan tarah kamalini haritaihi sarobhish chhaya drumair niyamitar kamayu khatapah bhuyat kusheshaya rajo mrudurenu rasyaha shantanukula pavanascha shivascha panthaha. May the path be pleasant to her, with lakes green with lotus beds on the way. The heat of sun's rays be moderated with shady trees. The dust be soft like the pollens of the lotus flower, and the breeze gentle and favorable. The very idea of personifying the cloud as messenger in Meghdootam reflects Kalidas's zest for nature. Describing the beauty of cloud, Yaksha says, Ratna chhaya vyatikara iva prekshametat purastat Valmikagrat prabhavati dhanuk khandamaakhandalasya Yena shyamam vapuratitaram kantimapatsyatete Barhenneva sphuritaruchina gopaveshasya vishnoho. O dark cloud, in the backdrop of a rainbow, your dark body will attain the same exceeding beauty and charm like that of Krishna and his glowing splendor in the backdrop of a peacock's feather. Addressing the cloud, the hero of the poem Yaksha says, Dhuma jyotih salila marutam sannipatah kva meghaha sandesharthaha kva patukarnehi pranibhip prapaniyaha ityautshukyad apariganayan guhyakastam yayache kamartahi prakriti krupanash chetana chetaneshu. A cloud is just a mixture of smoke, light, water, and wind. However, a message should be conveyed by sentient beings capable of discharging this function. But in his eagerness, Yaksha has requested a cloud to convey his message. For those that are sorely affected by love are naturally incapable of distinguishing between sentient and insentient things. In the fourth act of Vikramorvashiyam, Urvashi has been cursed to become a creeper in the forest called Gandhamadan. Pururava is wandering in search of her in his forest. He is requesting the trees, birds, deers, and elephants for her whereabouts. When he receives no clue, he sits beside a river, disappointed. When looking around, he observes a creeper that has no flowers, yet it seems to arouse emotions in him. Pururava compares this creeper with Urvashi and says, Tanvi megha jalarda pallavataya dhauta dhareva shrubhihi shunye va bharanaihi swakala virahad vishranta pushpodgama chinta maunamiva sthita madhuliham shabdair vina lakshyate chandi mam avadhuya padapatitam jatanu vasa. The leaves of the creeper are moist in the rain, as if my beloved's lips are moist with tears. The creeper has no flowers, just like my beloved had worn no ornaments at the time of separation. This silent creeper, with no bees making sound around it, is like my beloved's anxious silence, as if remorsing her action of leaving me alone. The fourth important aspect of Kalidas's writing style is the generous use of Shringara Rasa, that is, sentiment of romance and aesthetics. His description of Yaksha's wife in Meghdootam is only too famous. It describes the physical qualities found in an attractive woman. The shlok says, Tanvi Shyama Shikhari Dashana Pakva Bimbadharoshthi Madhye Kshama Chakita harini prekshana nimnanabhihi Shroni bharad alasagamana stoka namrastanabhyam Ya tatrasyat yuvati vishaye srushtiradhyeva dhatuhu. The lady there will be slender-framed, youthful, having pointed teeth, and her lower lip will resemble like a ripe bimba fruit. Thin in the middle, possessing eyes of a frightened deer, she will have a deep navel. She will walk slow due to the weight of her hips and slightly stoop due to the weight of her breasts. Such Yaksha's wife is as if the first creation made by the Creator in the department of womankind. Doesn't this line remind you of a famous Hindi song that says, "Fursat se banaya hoga, kudrat ne tujhe mere yaar"? To enhance the Shringar Rasa of his poems, Kalidas uses elements of nature fully to his advantage. For example, in the first act of AbhijnyanaShakuntam, King Dushyanta is attracted towards Shakuntala when he sees her for the first time in forest. He observes a bumblebee flying close to her face, not going away even when Shakuntala tries to make it go. Becoming jealous of this bumblebee, King Dushyanta exclaims, "O bumblebee, you touch repeatedly her quivering eye, the corners of which are tremulous. Hovering near her ear, you sweetly hum, as though whispering a secret of love. In spite of waving her hand, you taste her lower lip, as though kissing her and enjoying all bliss. O bee, indeed, you have outdone us, who were searching for such bliss, but never found it." Another example of using nature to enhance the Shringar Ras is the third canto of Kumarasambhavam. Following the command of Indra, Madana the Cupid, accompanied with his friend the Spring and wife Rati, head for the mission of creating deflections in Shiva's heart. He creates an untimely ambience of spring season to bring about the desired results. Some verses reflecting this romance in nature are as follows. Madhudvirephah kusumaikapatre papau priyam swamanuvartamanah shrungena cha sparsha nimilitakshim mrugim akandu yata krishna sarah dadau rasat pankajarenu gandhi गजाय गंडूष जलम करेणुः अर्धोपभुक्तेन बिसेन जायां संभावयामास रथांगनामा पर्याप्त पुष्पस्तबकस्तनाभ्यः स्फुरत् प्रवालोष्ठ मनोहराभ्यः लतावधूभ्यः तरवोपि अवापुः विनम्र शाखा भुजबंधनानि. The male bee, attentive to his dear mate, drank honey from the same flower bowl. The black antelope scratched with his horn his mate, who had closed her eyes through the pleasant sensation of that touch. The female elephant, through great love, gave to the male the water held in her mouth, fragrant with the pollen dust of lotuses. The charvak bird flattered his mate by giving her a lotus stalk, half eaten by himself. The trees too received tight hugs in the shape of tender twigs of the creeper brides, their young reddish sprouts looking like red lips, and their dense cluster of flowers looking like breasts. Even after all the ambience created as above, Shiva remained absorbed in meditation. Realizing his failures, Madan almost gave up on his mission till he sighted Parvati. After gazing at the beauty of Parvati, Madan regained his confidence to accomplish his mission once again and waited for the right moment to strike Shiva with his unfailing weapon, that is, Sammohanastra. The fifth aspect of Kalidas's work that appeals to the audience are his witty quotes. For example, in the third act of Vikramorvashiyam, Pururava is pining to see Urvashi. At this time, when he sees Urvashi's best friend Chitralekha alone, he says, "Na tatha nandayasi mam sakhya virahita taya sangame purva drushteva yamuna gangaya vina." That is, your arrival without your friend does not amuse me, just like one who has seen the Sangam of Ganga and Yamuna does not get pleased to see Yamuna alone. On this, Chitralekha replies wittily, "Nanu prathamam megha rajir drishyate paschat vidyullata," which means, first we see a string of clouds and then the lightning, implying that Urvashi will be appearing soon. Apart from such witty quotes, Kalidas's work is full of general truths of worldly wisdom too. For example, Yadevopanatam dukkhat sukham tadrasavattaram nirvanaya taruchhaya taptasya hi visheshataha. This means that joy brought after a suffering is much more enjoyable. For enjoying the shade of a tree, one must have experienced the heat of the sun. Or Paravritta bhagadheyanam dukkha dukkhanubandhi, which means those whose destiny has turned unfavorable, suffering is followed by more suffering. One famous quote we know is Ati sneha papashanki, that is, too much love creates fears and doubts in mind. Anutshekaha Vikramalankaraha, that is, humility is the beauty of a powerful and courageous person. Another such relatable quote from Meghdootam is Nichair gacchatyuparicha dasha chakrane mikramena. Human beings undergo ups and downs of life just like the movement of a rotating wheel. Thus we can see that Kalidas is a full-fledged poet. His works are entertaining, enjoyable, mature, and elegant. No wonder following verse describes the greatness of such a poet thus. Pura kavinang ganana prasange kanishthikadhishthita kalidase adyapi tattulya kavera bhavat anamika sarthavati babhuva. Once, when poets were being counted, the counting started with Kalidas being placed on the little finger. Thereafter, till date, there hasn't been a poet equivalent to Kalidas. Hence, the next finger to the little finger, called Anamika, which means nameless, has lived up to her name even till date in absence of an equivalent poet. Kalidas was not a born genius, but through his work, he has become immortal. May we get inspired by such a poet and strive to achieve excellence in whatever we do.